I want to begin this morning by inviting you to imagine a Christmas card that has a picture of Mary on it. How do you imagine that she appears, this Mary on this Christmas card? Take a moment. If you're anything like me, the image that comes to mind is of a young woman, young but not too young that she offends our sensibilities, right? Like maybe like a 17 to 20-year-old. We know that she's young, but not that 12 to 14-year-old that she probably was, that she would have been. If your imagination is anything like mine, she's also a pale-skinned white woman, which is odd because as a Palestinian Jew, her skin would have been more nut brown or olive toned. In the Christmas card imagery that has shaped my imagination, her posture, her slight smile, she has this glowing aura, portraying her just like many of our favorite Christmas carols do, right? It gives this vibe of a docile, sweet, and compliant servant, right? Completely submissive to God's will. Just like Catholic notions of Mary's perpetual virginity, this image presents her in our minds as pure and uncomplicated. A fairly sterile and passive, although necessary, vessel for birthing the Messiah. For many of us, this is what Mary is known for, the model of faithfulness that we've been taught that she represents. Not for boys or men, of course, but for girls and women. Want to be godly? Emulate this Mary, this palatable, non-offensive image created by men, by priests and theologians throughout the ages. But as one of our Bible study participants raised in our conversation last Monday, in addition to how we tell this story, we also need to ask, who gets to tell this story? To quote the musical Hamilton, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Right? Just another plug for a Monday evening Bible study right out there around the table, 5:30 if you want to join us and explore these stories more in depth. But it turns out that a very different Mary is capable of rising off the same pages if she is spoken on a different tongue. Central to this recovery of Mary and what she teaches us today is the importance of listening to the voices and stories of women from different cultures, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses as they reflect on this story. And in fact, just verses ago, Luke tells the story, just before this one this morning, Luke tells the story of this same messenger of God, the angel Gabriel visiting Zechariah, the husband of Mary's cousin Elizabeth, to give him a message about as absurd as the one that's given to Mary. He and Elizabeth, the angel says, who are both like really, really old, are about to be pregnant, and they are to name their son John. Now, Zechariah is a priest with an important lineage who occupies a position of power and influence in the community. We might almost expect an angel to come and visit someone like Zechariah, right? Isn't that how it works? That's who gets the angels. And yet Zechariah's encounter with Gabriel ends with the angel shutting his mouth because of a lack of faith. Zechariah is literally rendered mute. He's not allowed to speak again until his child, John, who would become known as the baptizer, preparing the way for Jesus, until he's born. 9+ months, this privileged man is forced to simply listen to his wife, Elizabeth, and Mary, who also comes to stay with them for a few months. Nadia Boltz-Weber, who was preaching on this passage recently in a women's prison, adds, imagine if every time a man questioned what was possible for a woman to do, their mouths were shut for 9 months. Think about how much would get done, and in such a quiet setting. All of which is to say, if we follow the angel Gabriel's lead and silence the voices of the men who have given us the distorted image of of Mary that occupies many of our minds and listen instead for the voices of women, as I've tried to do this week, and we could probably all do a little bit more of on a regular basis. The Mary that we encounter, the Mary who rises off the pages, is hardly recognizable to the one that we've imagined. In contrast to this man of high power and prestige who is shut up, Mary, a poor, unwed, pregnant 13-year-old, one who was easily overlooked and dismissed in her world, is greeted as God's highly favored one highly esteemed. In fact, her angelic encounter ends with her being given the last word as she's sort of handed a microphone and asked to sing a solo, which she does, singing out a song of joy, a song of liberation and justice, which we call the Magnificat, which is about a God who turns the world upside down, a God of impossible reversals, who topples unjust rulers from their golden thrones and raises up the marginalized like her. Where do you think that Jesus first heard the phrase, "The first shall be last and the last shall be first," if not on his mother's lips? Indeed, Mary isn't merely a model of faithfulness for women. She is a prophet whose call to faithfulness should challenge and inspire, should comfort and provoke all of us. And that's just it. The starting point for understanding Mary is seeing not a passive, obedient girl, but as women looking at this story have noted, seeing how she is presented as a prophet. And this is Mary's call story. Just like the prophets of the Old Testament, some of whom were also women. Like them, she responds faithfully to the particular call that God has placed before her, knowing that it will require great courage and strength. It will require vulnerability and resolve. That it will require confronting dehumanizing characterizations from some, even as it inspires others. When we look at this story more closely, we discover not a young woman who is meek and mild, who is passive and submissive, but a young woman who is strong. A young woman who has a direct encounter with God. One who does not hesitate to question God, and who does not need the mediation of a man to accomplish God's purposes. In fact, while the future tense verbs in the passage, right, the sense of this will happen to you, while that might sound to our untrained ears at first as though everything is divinely determined, as though Mary is simply a passive recipient, when we hear this exchange in light of the other prophetic encounters in the Old Testament, it becomes clear that none of what the angel announces can be accomplished without Mary's consent. Right? This is not the divine decree of a dictator or emperor. It's a divine invitation. In a very real way, then, God chooses to limit God's own power to Mary's receptivity, which is to say, each of our receptivity, in order to accomplish the liberation and flourishing that is God's dream for the world. Let me say that again. God doesn't force Mary to go through with pregnancy, to give birth. Mary maintains the authority and freedom to consent, to choose. Again, like many of the great prophets who came before her, Mary knows that taking up the mantle of this call will mean being rejected by some, perhaps even her own family. Joseph, the Gospel of Matthew tells us, was initially planning to dismiss her, even if quietly, when he found out. Importantly, and quite understandably, Mary's first words are not simple compliance, like most of us when we receive a challenging call to go and do something, but words of resistance like, No, wait. What are we being called to? How is this exactly going to work? I don't think I'm the right person. It's got to be someone else. Like, are you sure? Gabriel, are you sure? And in the process, Mary is persistent in speaking her concern and her need. And the angel, on behalf of God, doesn't rebuke Mary. How dare you question my authority? But is responsive, ending ultimately with a promise. In the end, all of this makes Mary's choice, her consent to partner with God in this way, all the more powerful. Okay, she says, I'll do it. Here I am. Let it be with me as you've said. When we hear the story of Mary anew spoken through the voices of women, we find that Mary is indeed a model of faithfulness, but a very different kind. And that's the thing. This is a story about Mary and her particular call, but as Scripture, it also offers us a script for how God seeks to speak to each and all of us. As Scripture, this isn't just about once upon a time. It's meant to wake us up to the voice of the God who is still speaking, who is still seeking partners willing and open to hearing the call today. Like with Mary and the prophets before her, that call comes to ordinary people in the midst of the everydayness of life. The call doesn't happen on a mountaintop. It's not contrived. They may well not come in a church building. Like Mary, we must be open and attentive, must be responsive enough in the everydayness of life to notice the tap on the shoulder that says, here, this. Yeah, that. That is it. Are you willing? But if we are living on autopilot or merely looking for God in cathedral ceilings or stained glass, we're going to miss it. Because you see, what we do here is simply meant to help us pay better attention to welcoming that call when we go back out there. This isn't the point. And that's exactly the call of this season of Advent. Instead of cruising through to Christmas and getting entirely lost in the commercial and cultural trappings of the holiday season, thinking that we know this story, right? We're just showing up because we love the nostalgia, the carols. We just love to hear it over and over. Thinking that we know this story so well because we've heard it so many times. Instead, we are invited to hear its strange invitation anew, to peel back those layers of Mary and others that we think we know, but we really don't. And to hear the good news as if for the first time. Like Mary, are you willing to be disrupted? To be surprised by a call to something bigger than yourself? A call to partner in some concrete way with God to bring about greater justice and mercy, greater love and liberation. Are we as a church willing to consent to that call? To trust it, even if it's met with rejection or ridicule, even if it brings challenge or loss? This week I came across the words of a song that I think capture the heart of this invitation in today's scripture reading from the Gospel of Luke. The lines go, "What good is it to me if Christ's eternal birth takes place unceasingly, but does not take place within me? What good is it to me for the Creator to give birth to a child if I do not give birth to him in my time and place? For we are all meant to be mothers of God, for God is ever waiting to be born. We are all meant to be mothers of God, to give God a face, to give God a voice, to give God a place in this world. And so, like Mary, full of grace, we make our lives a welcome space. We say yes to love in the midst of fear. We say yes to hope. We trust that you are near. We say yes to joy so deep that it soothes the pain. We say yes to peace and light and freedom once again. Friends, it's in our yes, like Mary's, that the world begins to change. That the future the prophet Isaiah paints is drawn a little bit closer. May it be so. Amen.